Shalom. Welcome all to our KosherTorah School classes. I am, of course, your host, Ariel Tzadok. You find me and our other courses and classes online at www.koshertorah.com. This is now our daily Sefer Yetzirah series. This is lesson 18 in that series, dedicated, of course, to the safety, the well-being, and health of all those today around the world who are facing the problems and sufferings and tribulations with our present corona outbreak. God bless us all. Let's stay safe, guys. Now, let's explore some very interesting teachings from our book. We're in the 5th Mishnah of the 1st chapter, and we introduced the concept yesterday called the amokim, or the depths. Now, I explained how the word amok is actually a code word, and it describes, it's the numerical value of the word geburah, corresponding to the 72 triads and the angelic forces behind that, which create the parameters of all things in the actual 3 dimensions of space, time, and morality, or mind or consciousness. We also discussed how the energy that flows through that is that which we call cheshek, or passion, libido, chi, kundalini. We're familiar, orgone, it's all the same. But now, with that being understood, we're going to do a little bit of space trucking today. And let's go through what these depths are. They correspond, of course, being 10 in number, to the sefirot. And if you look at different commentaries, you'll see different correlations. Rabbi Chaim Vital has his set of correlations here. And if you look at, for example, the Ariel Kaplan translation of the Sefer Yetzirah, you'll see it brings down about 2 or 3 different versions of interpretations. And you're going to scratch your head and say, well, gee, which one's the right one? The question is, right according to whom? How do you know right from wrong? If you are dealing with things externally and looking at things only from an academic point of view, well, you're never going to know it now, are you? That is why we're dealing here with the word omek, a depth. A depth is, here, like it says in our text, midatan ein lehem shiur. The measure is 10, but they have no sof, no depth, no end. So, our first depths that we're dealing with are called the beginning and the end. Beginning and end, that's time. What is the correlation of time to the sefirot? Well, that all depends who you ask. According to Rabbi Chaim, the beginning is Keter and the end is Malchut. So his concept of understanding beginning and end goes from the top of the sefirot to the bottom. Other schools will put the word Reshit, the beginning of time, with Chokhmah, and the end of time with Bina, corresponding time in relationship to the evolution of consciousness, where in which you have that initial, again, intuitive moment being the beginning, and the full comprehension of things being the end. Not Rabbi Chaim. He looks at the initial materialization of will. Willpower is the beginning of all things, and that is very true. In Zohar speak, willpower is called Ra'awah, all right? And it's called Ra'awah Ila'ah, the supernal will. When we refer to Keter, which is the initial materialization of that which we call divine energy, that's the beginning. And the end is the materialization of all things. And, moving on, we're going to read later in a Mishnah, it's going to teach us that the beginning of a thing is in its end, and its end is in its beginning. And you can say, oh, that's a nice metaphysical concept. What does that have to do with me? Answer is very important. Understand that your entire purpose and intent on this world is the materialization of your inner will. That's why we have such a crazy world today, and always have. It's because it's the will of one individual versus everyone else. One person who achieves power wants to impose his or her will upon everyone else. One will to rule them all. And it's all these little itsy bitsy wills which are fighting each other. Why do we think today we have a cultural civil war between those who are on one side of the political spectrum to the other? It's because their will has to dominate the other's will and fight, fight, fight. Where does it lead? Usually to destruction. There's only one will, and that's the ultimate source. Ra'awa ila'a. That's the secret of Keter. So this is why in Pirkei Avot, our wise old rabbis, what did they say? Nullify your will before God's will, and God's will then permeate and express in everything. So when your will sublimates to the divine will, then you become part of the Tao, part of the universal Torah, part of the way, and everything just happens the way it's meant to be. That's the secret of will. And that's the materialization of the acharit, the end. So when we talk about the coming of Mashiach, what do we call it? The acharit hayamim, the end days, or the malchut days, when Keter becomes malchut. And as Keter becomes malchut, well, what do you know? At the same time, in the same way, malchut becomes Keter. So it's not just going down. It's not just going down and going up, even though that's also, Chaim Vital uses the word going down, is what he calls or yashar, descending light, or choser, ascending light, goes back up. Kind of like the ladder in Jacob's ladder, going back and up. But think of it more like a circle. And you have to connect the circuit. That's the beginning and the end. And now, let's go to our next. Omek tov ve'omek ra. Good and evil. Tov, Rabbi Chaim refers to as Chochmah, and Ra, evil, Bina. Wow, that's kind of weird. Intuition is all good. Why? Because it's expansive. He makes it very clear in the commentary. It's not like Bina, intellect, is bad, but it's the source of bad. Why? Because if you look at what causes evil in our world today, it all starts off as thoughts. Even someone as despicable as the likes of the founder of Nazism, Adolf Hitler. What was his ultimate purpose? He wanted to create the perfect society. He wanted to create paradise on earth. But his interpretation of what that meant was a perverted, disgusting thing. You see, the kernel idea, I think everyone wants paradise on earth, heaven on earth. Yes. But how do you get that? Let's kill and destroy everybody who doesn't agree with me. Let's wipe out this and wipe out that. Well, that's the perversion. Okay, we can't do that. Everything's a concentric whole. So you see, thought disconnected from intuition is the source of evil. And that is why thought disconnected from intuition is called the tree of knowledge, good and evil. Because if you connect to intuition, it can be good. If you disconnect from intuition and you have just raw analysis and intellect, that's evil. And if you look at all the evil that's ever been perpetrated in the world, it is always, try it at least, to be expressed in some rational intellectual form. Detached intellect, very bad. But now, these are the dimensions of both space, well, we didn't get space yet, time, and consciousness, because remember, intuition, intellect, these are the realms of mind. And then we have the dimensions in space, north, south, east, west, up and down, just for the record. Up is called Netzach, Hod is called down. East is called Tiferet, west is called Yesod. That's why we have the western wall of the Kotel in Jerusalem, because that's the expression of the face of the east. The face of the east is Tiferet. Tiferet, we said, is Zeir Anpin, so it's small Zeir Anpin. North, of course, is Gevurah, and south is Chesed. These are the Sefirot. Okay, what on earth are we dealing with here? Think about it. Where do we have the concept of space? Isn't space something, and the definitions of directions like I've just described, only subjective within the context of a magnetic field? And in our context, doesn't that have to be planet-based? I'm on Earth. I have a compass. It's going to point to magnetic north. up. Magnetic south, therefore, would be down. And if I'm looking towards the north, on my right will be east, on my left will be west. If you look towards the place where the sun rises, we say it rises in the east and sets in the west. So we have these concepts of direction. But now let's get a little bit off of planet Earth, all right? Now, we recognize the heliocentric model as being the normal reality, where in which the planets do revolve around the sun. And you have, believe it or not, those people today are still geocentric. They believe that the Earth is stationary and the planets still revolve around them, because they misunderstand a metaphorical symbolism that was meant, in a different way. It was a science in the olden days to believe that, but it's been misproven. But some people, they don't want to move on with reality, and they stay stuck in fantasy. Oh, well, I'm not going to deal with that right now. Here we are. Sun's in the center of the galaxy, is our solar system. All our planets are rotating around it, right? For example, when we speak, I speak of the Earth rotating around the sun like this. Yeah? Okay, fine. Is the Earth rotating around the sun like this? Are the other planets going up and down like this? So we have one planet rotating like this, one planet rotating like that, third one like that? No. Somehow they're all basically more or less in an even keel. So if I'm here on Earth and I want to go to Mars, Mars is somewhere along that more or less parallel parameter there. If I want to leave the solar system, here's the sun. I go away from the sun, right? I go whoosh in a straight line, right? But remember something about straight lines. Yeah, I can go out of the solar system in a straight line like that, but can't I go like this? Can't I go like that? Is not space what we would understand as three-dimensional? So if I'm going to catch a ride on the local flying saucer that just so happens to be passing by, coming out of Roswell or Area 51 or wherever else it's going to come from, and I'm hitching a ride, and I'm going to say, hey, can we go out there? Come on, Rabbi, let's go space trucking. Cool and groovy. Where can we go? Oh, we're going to go this way out of the solar system. Hey, do you guys have intergalactic highways like we have here on Earth? Our travel is two-dimensional. We have roads. You stand the same thing. We have planes that go up in the air. Can we take your flying saucer and go this way? What's up there? What's down there? How do I define direction in space? Now, modern science, NASA, will tell you that they have their definitions. Fine. But you must recognize that this type of speculation was asked long, long ago, especially with those who did Merkabah ascent, who actually through astral projection, like Moses, like Enoch, actually went to other places. How do you think you go from point A to point B in Merkabah ascent? It's not just you are there quantum entanglement style. No, there's an actual transportation mechanism. There is an actual transit system. Where do I know this from? How about the Bible? Doesn't the prophet Ezekiel speak of the chariot? First of all, the image of the person on the chariot was not God. No, it wasn't. Sorry. Go and read Maimonides in his Moreh Nebuchim, the beginning of section 3, and there's a big secret about who was on that throne. But it wasn't what we call God. All right? It was image or the kavod of God. But that's another story. What do you need a transportation device? Why is it called a Merkabah, a chariot? What does a chariot do? It takes you from point A to point B. God doesn't need a chariot. God, in all due respect, doesn't drive a Ford or a Chevy, a Caddy or a Mercedes. All right? That's all silly talk. But somehow, somewhere, these angels are commuting. They are traveling through some means of transportation devices. Look at Jacob's ladder. They're going up and down a ladder. Now, granted, the ladder is a metaphorical symbol expressed or experienced through Jacob's dream. but it is expressing the method of a transit system. How the heck do we transit the universe, especially if we're transiting through astral energy or the projection, astral projection? How do you do it? You just don't think, I want to go to the Pleiades and woof, poof, you're there. It doesn't work like that. Any more than if I wanted to go to China, I'm there. Gee, I'd save a lot in airfare. In today's world, I don't know if I want to go to China, but used to, certainly. Understand this now. There is a ways and a means and a purpose and a direction. This is what we call the amokim, the directional systems of the sefirot. So if I want to go that way, I'm going to focus on the sefirotic energy, which corresponds, at least as it relates to consciousness, to that direction. If I want to go this direction, I speak and focus on the sefirotic energy of, in quote, that direction. I don't have to reference which direction it is because the concept is the same. And that sefirotic energy functions as a transit system, which enables movement astrally, psychically, energetically from point A to point B. Many of you might have heard of a concept called Kapitsa Hadera, traveling along the way. This was actually a term which was borrowed by Frank Herbert and put into his book Dune and became the foundation of his prophetic character called the Kapitsa Hadera. Kapitsa Hadera. When I first read the book, I thought that correlation was just a coincidence on my part. I was reading into the text, I thought, but no. Go back into the glossary of the book, and his definition of Kapitsa Hadera is shortener of the way, Kapitsa Hadera. Good old Mr. Herbert knew what he was dealing with. A lot of big secrets in doing, but another topic for another time. Traveling the transit system of the Sefirot is an actuality which is performed in meditation. Reb Chaim hints to it here, and he actually addresses some of these things in his other works, but this is really what you find in the old, unquote, Merkabah or magical system. Now, when we want to connect with a sephirah specifically, we focus in a specific direction, we focus on the specific energy, and breathing, we draw in that energy and project it out. Remember, everything is cyclical. And that is how you will connect with this energy or that energy, or transport from this place to that place in the astral direction. This is the actual and realistic foundation of what we call magic. No such thing as magic as hocus pocus. It's all the concentration of energy. But a point that the text makes very, very clear. Adon Yechid El Melech Ne'eman Moshel Bekulam. The single Lord, who is the king, the faithful king, rules over them all. Because within all the directions of space, the directions of time, the directions of morality, is that singular energetic flow, which we call God. And you must understand that if you try to take an energetic flow and reverse the polarity, reverse the flow, or act in ways that are unnatural, you will run into the resistance of the natural singular source. And you ain't going to win. How's that? It says that it rules Me'ma'on Kodsho, from its holy place. The definition of holiness means calibrated properly to the system. That is why the temple was called holy, because it was calibrated to the system. Good behavior, moral behavior, that's what we call righteousness. Energetic calibration is what we call holiness. It's really not religious, it's energetic. And we say from his holy place, ad ad. Reb Chaim says that is a symbolic representation of the Tiferet Malchut, the dual reality of what we call the energy and the physical, which form a concentric whole, the Du Partzufim. Check out classes that I have on YouTube and Kosher Torah, my other courses, for more information on that. Okay, guys, I hope I gave you enough to think about today, because we're dealing here with the natural world, with the El Melech Ne'aman, the true king that rules over them all. One force to rule them all. You understand the metaphor, but it's a reality which you need to experience. So whatever direction we go in emotions, actions, thoughts, or time or space, recognize and seek the singularity. And if you do, you will know the flow and the transit system by surrendering your will and allowing the higher will to guide you. And it will. Take that into consideration, and I'll see you in our next class. Ariel from the KosherTorah School saying, Shalom.